The shortest route between Russia and the United States is over the North Pole. So if the Cold War had ever become hot, the bombs would have been going straight over here. This is Tuktoyaktuk on the Arctic Ocean in the Canadian Northwest Territories. And that behind me with the domes was once the military's dew line, the distant early warning line. Or at least part of it. The dew line was built in the 1950s, 57 radar bases, ranging all the way from the Aleutian Islands to Greenland. They looked to the sky around the clock, and if any aircraft showed up on radar that weren't supposed to be there, well, there was a chance that those were Soviet bombers carrying nuclear weapons to North American targets. And the governments would have somewhere between an hour and 4 hours to scramble some sort of response. Construction of the dew line was an enormous operation. Thousands and thousands of people had to be transported to the Arctic, provided with food and housing, and the hundreds of thousands of tons of equipment and supplies that they'd need to build the line. But the military is good at logistics, or at least the vast number of civilian contractors that they hired were. All the bases were completed in just 2.5 years, and North America was prepared for Soviet attack at the cost of around $500 million from the two governments. There were other costs too, less financial. For a lot of the folks that lived near the dew line sites, the sudden influx of people and equipment destroyed their way of life, although that is a story that I am not qualified to tell. The construction also contaminated a lot of the local environment. Standards then aren't what they are now, and the cleanup is still going on. And for all that, the dew line lasted about 5 years until it was obsolete. Because shortly after it was completed, both the Soviet Union and the United States started to put their nuclear warheads not on aircraft, but on intercontinental ballistic missiles that didn't need 8 or 9 hours of flight over the pole. Instead, the first wave of attack would come from rockets that would take half an hour and literally go over the top of the dew line. Half of these stations were shut down a few years later. The rest of the line, including this station here, well, they played a role in air defence. After all, if they weren't here, the Soviet Union could have theoretically still sent bombers over the pole, but they weren't the shield that North America hoped that they would be. US President Eisenhower, in his memoirs, said that military technology, well, if it works, it's obsolete. The dew line kept running though, at least until the 90s when a more modern system was constructed. Now this site is part of a North Warning System, part of a modern radar defence around the whole continent that can detect basically anything inbound at any altitude, which is why I'm not allowed near it. Governments on this side of the pole want to be sure. The Cold War might be over, but just in case, they'd better keep watching.